Buongiorno a tutti ragazzi, un saluto di Inter Worldwide. It is an honor and a pleasure to have a very special guest on today, Mr. Richard Kharman, co-host of the awesome Serie A sitdown. He's an introduction to me, so I'm going to go right to Richard. Thanks for Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
First, thank you for having me on. Appreciate being on here. I'm part of the Serie A sit-down team here. It's myself and Frank Crivello. We've kind of been doing this it's going to be our 5th season going on here. So we've been doing it for a while in terms of podcasts. Many podcasts are just starting out. There's very few that's been around for quite as long as that we have. There's a couple I can think of, but we kind of got together, funny enough, years ago. Almost virtually, never in person, which is kind of funny. But yeah, we decided to get together and we call it a recap show on steroids. We basically cover every team, every game, and go in depth. And our podcast can vary from 1 hour to 2 hours long because lots of games, lots of goals, lots to talk about. So it's been a blast. And myself, I do this obviously, and I also do Schalke America podcast. And so I've been doing that, I think, a year less in Serie A sit down, but just so I don't confuse the viewers, I do have a Lazio kit on, but I am a Milan fan. The reason for the kit, I made a bet with a Lazio fan that Milan would finish better than them, and if they didn't, I'd buy a kit. Well, we know how the standings turn out, so I am a man of my word, and I'm wearing a Crespo jersey, so.
Oh man, if there was going to be someone on the back, I would have got the Crespo jersey straight away. So good choice there, Richard. So everybody, make sure you go and check out Serie A Sit Down. It's fantastic, and I exactly agree with Richard. It can sometimes vary from 1 hour to 2 hours. They get a live chat going as well, very interactive. It's really, really good stuff. I'm really happy to have Richard on here because this is such an Nerazzurri dominant channel. It's Inter Worldwide. I don't get a chance to talk as much about the rest of the league. So it's going to be basically a Serie A recap as a whole. We'll go down the ladder. We'll talk a little bit about the form of each and every team this season and how it ended up. Some teams fortunate, some teams not so fortunate in this whole COVID ordeal. It was a rough season, Richard, man. It's almost a season where you don't want to see anybody suffer and come out with the short end of the stick. But, football is football at the end of the day. So before we do start from the top, maybe just give us a short little recap. What were your overall thoughts of the season now that Serie A has closed out?
It's one of the craziest seasons I can imagine in a long time. Obviously all the change with management coming into the season, Conte, Sarri, a bunch of other guys. Gianpaolo, also with Milan. Many people were wondering how the season would turn out. Obviously, I was confident with having Gianpaolo at Milan. Thought we'd do really well with him, with his offensive tactics, and obviously that failed miserably. But we had some great starts with Inter. Inter had a great start. Lazio had a great start. Both these clubs really pushed the Juventus to the very end. Both Lazio and Inter historically usually collapse in usually January. But it was nice to see both those clubs doing so well into March, and then right when the coronavirus hit the world, it was unfortunate because those two teams probably could have kept it up till the very end against Juventus. Yes, Juventus won by 1 point, but overall, we've seen so many surprises. Atalanta is probably the darling of the season, but you had Verona, a great story, promoted, and they did so well. And Lecce fighting until the end. It's just been a crazy season, and I can't remember. The Halton season really makes everything stand out more than any other season, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. It is unfortunate, man. So let's get the ball rolling, and it's a really good time to have spoken to Richard because I'm literally speaking about 10 hours. Why do I think it's 10? It's closer to about 12 hours after Maurizio Sarri has been sacked and relieved of his duties as Juventus manager. Only about 4 days after holding up the Scudetto, 5 days after holding up the Scudetto trophy. Yes, of course, he did close the Scudetto out about 2 to 3 games earlier, but it's a really, really weird decision. And then it just shook me even more to wake up and see probably one of, if not my favorite player of all time, he's going to be managing Juventus next season, not the under-23s team. Il Maestro Andrea Pirlo is Agnelli's chosen man. I'm looking at Richard's face now as well. It's almost like it's an April Fool's joke waking up this morning. Andrea Pirlo technically is one of the most gifted footballers of all time, but Juventus and Agnelli might have bitten off a little bit more they can chew here. So let's start off with talking about the decision, Richard, and then we'll move into Juventus' season. So ultimately, what do you think has caused Agnelli to make this decision? Of course, they were eliminated from the Champions League against Lyon in disappointing fashion, but it was a very quick decision after the Finish, mate.
Yeah, it's confusing. Like you said, it's very confusing. First off, I thought the firing of Sarri was a little premature. He didn't get all the players that he needed for his style of offense. He kind of dealt with the leftovers last year, and it obviously didn't work out. It's shocking. I'm still in shock because we all love Andrea Pirlo as a player, but as a manager, he's unproven. Now, Agnelli's either going to look like a genius or an idiot. I'm leaning towards the second because we haven't seen what he can do. At least, I mean, Zidane was the same way, and he could turn out like Zidane, win 3 Champions Leagues in a row or something. Who knows? But I don't know what to think. I'm just shocked. And it's funny because after Sarri was fired, many Juventini online were saying, we're curious who the pick's going to be because if they're really intentions of winning Champions League, they need to bring in a manager who's used to winning Champions League. And they don't bring, if they don't do that, we actually know there's no intention of that at all. And they bring in Andrea Pirlo. And on top of all of that, you had Bonucci just before the hiring saying, oh, our goal the entire season was winning the Scudetto, not Champions League. Get the heck out of here. Come on. Who's going to believe that? But
no one's going to believe that.
But Pirlo is just head scratching. I mean, I want to wait and see and give him a chance. He's one of my favorite players ever, like you said. But, man, I don't know.
I just moved into a new house recently, and I'm in the process of doing the wall in my study, and I was that close to ordering like a wall art of Pirlo in an Azzurri shirt, but I don't think I can have Pirlo hanging on my wall if I'm trying to do inter-worldwide videos. Do you know what I mean, Richard? Man, it's just so bizarre, and part of me wants me to see him do well, but part of me can't see him walking into a dressing room pissed off. He's almost come across as the most placid footballer to ever play the game. And if you've ever read his autobiography, which was amazing, I couldn't put it down. I read it in hours straight. It just, he translates his thoughts exactly what we expected it to be. He plays the same way he thinks. To him, there's no point getting all worked up or too emotional. He knows what he's doing, but is that the right style of managerial man to come into Juventus and try and steer them towards a Champions League? And I guess we'll piggyback on that too. Is Cristiano Ronaldo going to stay another season?
I want to say yes, but I mean, apparently there's rumors that he was on the verge of trying to work a deal to PSG or something before all this happened. So I don't know. It's 50-50 at the moment. Whereas, before the hire, I would say it's 100% he's back. I'm not so sure because, Pirlo, is that the right mentality? Maybe. Definitely need a calming influence, especially when things go wrong. He's been there. He's done that. But when things go wrong, you need someone to yell. You need like a Gattuso type or a Zidane. Zidane can yell at you. He'll headbutt you if he doesn't like you. Gattuso too. We don't know what he's like with in adversity. He's going to be cool and calm. Some of these guys need a little push, a little kick in the back to get them going. And, we know he's a great player. They're all going to respect him, but they're also going to be like, what have you done for us? You know what I mean? Obviously, Zidane was able to manage the Madrid locker room very well with his prestige, having no experience. So maybe Pirlo can do the same, but man, it's a wait and see. I off the top of my head, they're going to be off my Scudetto contenders or top of the list for next season. Automatically, they're down. Until I see what they're going to make up, it's going to be Inter if they keep Conte, and Lazio is probably going to be in it too if Inzaghi stays there. So,
regardless of what Juventus do, it's still very much the responsibility of the rest of the teams in Serie A to step up and show that they are worthy. At the end of the day, we can talk about Juventus as much as they want. They're still the reigning champions, 9 in a row, and that's what they'll take into next season. And I agree with Richard, favourites again. I don't like to talk about Juventus too much, so let's just recap their season pretty quickly. Started off with showing some, grinding out those Juve-style wins, but not showing any signs of good, fluid football. And a lot of their fans kept thinking, if we're grinding out wins now, wait till the end of the season when it starts to look like Sarri ball. It didn't happen at all. It didn't even start. I don't even think we saw a fluid 2 or 3 matches. Some of their fans might argue just before they were going into COVID, they had developed some sort of fluidity. They didn't. Richard, would you agree with that? Overall, was it a disappointing season on the pitch for Juventus, quality-wise?
Quality-wise, yes. And I think I'm one of those people in those boat who thought season's going to start out slow in terms of aesthetics on the pitch, but after January, they're going to turn it around. It's going to become Sarri ball, and we never saw that. And overall, it was a disappointing season because they were losing to teams they had no right losing to. You never saw them blow 2-0 leads, 3-0 leads before. It's very un-Juventus-like, and maybe that's because we got accustomed to Allegri, being so disciplined defensively that he wouldn't let these things happen. I mean, we had Martino Puccio and Matt Santangelo on our recent podcast, and they talked about how this is the most goals given up by a Scudetto winning team in a long, long time. 43 goals. That's unheard of.
Yep.
So defensively, there were shambles. They had a lot of issues in the locker room as well. And, overall throughout the season, yes, they were getting Juventus-type wins, but it wasn't pleasing to the eye at all. And I understand when Juventus fans this season, usually when they gripe and complain, I'm like, why are you complaining? You're winning. This year, I get it. It was a struggle for them, for sure, from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to Inter, who finished second. I talk on this channel all the time about Inter, so I'm actually going to let this one go to my guest today. Just quickly, I'm happy with the way the season ended. I think that Inter sometimes can be a little bit of a punching bag for the Italian media. I think there's just an example of that in the last two match days. However, I do acknowledge Conte's track record and liking to stir the plot, or just being a little bit unself-regulatory in situations like this. But overall, what did you make of Conte's first season at Inter, their signings, and overall how they played football and finished, Richard, and going into next season, of course?
They finished right where I thought they were going to finish. When Conte came in, I even did a video on YouTube where I said, Conte, first season, he's not going to win the Scudetto, but they're probably going to finish second place. I thought that it's going to take him a season to really get the team where he wants, get the players he wants in, and then they're really going to challenge for Scudetto next year. They'd be my odds-on favorite right now going into next season to win the Scudetto if things remain the same player-wise. But yeah, overall, they started out so hot, and I thought this is going to be the year Juventus gets unseated, and they collapsed towards the end. But I love the signings they made. I love the people they brought in the January window. Alexis Sanchez had a revitalization. Eriksen, Ashley Young. You got some good pieces in there right now, and I think Conte needs just a couple more pieces, and you guys can be where you need to be. You guys have definitely stepped up from last season, but next season's the one I'm going to keep my eye on for you guys to really make the move for the title.
Yeah, absolutely. At that right end of the age spectrum as well, with your Hakimi, Barella, Stefano Sensi, if he's made permanent and can stay fit. If Lautaro stays, fantastic. If he leaves for something stupid like 80, 90 million, fantastic as well. I don't think he will in this climate. There's only so much Barcelona can flex and bluff their way through this. But I'm someone else who's very happy with the acquisition of Ashley Young, a professional footballer, can literally do almost anything a coach can tell him. Maybe not to the ability of a 9 out of 10, but he'll always give you that professional effort, no nonsense sort of player. So very happy there, and very excited to see how we go into next season. Let's talk a little bit about the other Nerazzurri boys on the block. It's the boys from Bergamo. What a season for Atalanta. My God, they're the pride jewel of this country. Rightfully so, Richard. Take it away.
Wow, they're the best team in the Lombardia region. Who would have thought that? They're the last team remaining in the Champions League for Italy. The season started out with obviously lots of goals, all season long goals. But we were wondering how they would respond. Like last year when they were in two competitions, they struggled to do both at the same time. They focused on one and the other one faltered. This year they kind of figured it out. It started slow in Champions League, but all of a sudden they took off, and we saw the Atalanta we're used to seeing, right? Atalanta doing Atalanta things. Goals left and right. They got basically two full teams. You got an A team and a B team who are equally as good. I mean, how many teams can take off Zapata, bring on Muriel, who by the way, had more goals as a sub than Zapata? So what a team. They're just fun to watch. Gasperini, by manager of the year for me, by far. Brilliant job by him, and the season's not done. They're one of the few teams left in Serie A playing still, with Inter still to go too. So, yeah, fantastic job. I can't say more than enough. It's a reason why I picked several players from this team on my team of the season, because they were that fantastic.
Well, man, 98 goals scored for. There was just sometimes where you'd think it's just a little bit mean. It reminded me of like park soccer on a park football on a Saturday, where one team is just so much better than the next. So you're like, are they going to stop? They're not going to stop. They're It was unbelievable, and full credit to Gasperini, because I feel like that sort of mentality in the league is exactly what translated in Europe. They probably couldn't have pushed on in Europe as hard as they could had they become accustomed to, play hard for X amount of time during a game. They carried it out throughout the whole 90 minutes in Italy, and that was why they could go toe-to-toe for the whole 90 against Manchester City. I think that draw was the day where the whole of Europe just went, hold up, what's going on here? What is going on here? And then Valencia, they did not stand a chance. It was like Atalanta was playing a relegation side in Italy, and we both know Valencia are far from that caliber, but kudos to them. And next season, if they can keep that mentality and that core together, I'm talking, keep Zapata, keep Iachich, keep Maksimovic, keep the rest of them, and just make sure that they buy one or two more players, and Gasperini keeps doing his thing, they'll be flirting with Champions League qualification again. They might even be flirting with a title run next season. We never know. Let's move on to Lazio, the team that did fly high at the start of the season. We all saw the team that they fielded in the Europa League. They never wanted a bar of this competition. They were firmly focused on the domestic league. But you know what? I'm going to come out and say it. It was a little bit of a reality check. I don't want to say it's embarrassing, but when you go from playing one fixture every 8 days to 3 fixtures a week, it just goes to show that to be a title winning side, to be a championship winning side, you need more than just a cohesive 11. You need a strong mentality, you need a backbone, and most importantly, you need a bench. Richard, Lazio this season.
You said it, you hit the nail on the head. They're probably one of the only teams that can compete with Juventus on paper in terms of talent, but the bench was a joke, as a laughing stock. I mean, they had nobody whatsoever, and you said it, once they started playing once every 3 days, the true Lazio came out, and the depth quality was gone. While they had good strikers like Immobile, Caicedo, Correa, who else are going to bring in? I mean, the other youngster, Adekanye, is pretty good, but the rest of the team, there's nobody for backups for SMS, Luis Alberto, the defense. They had no backup whatsoever, and that's really what Lazio needs to do to improve, to become a contender for Scudetto. They'll be in the contention for Champions League, but they need more depth by far.
Yeah, good for them for making the Champions League. I know that's been the core objective for their side for so many years now. So many of their fans every season have gone into the season going, can we qualify for the Champions League again? They usually make a good start and then they slip away, like last season as well. And of course, the year before, as an Inter fan, I remember it quite vividly. But this season, they definitely had to make it, and they did. So maybe that's something that they can build upon. And now we know for sure that Simone Inzaghi isn't going to be in Turin next season. 8 hours ago, I went to sleep going, it's probably going to be Inzaghi. No, not to be. He'll be there next season. Staying in the nation's capital, Roma. Very topsy-turvy. I mean, I don't think I'd realize, I can't put myself into a Roma fan's shoes this season in terms of they've just been on a slope all season, very, very inconsistent in terms of injuries, in terms of ownership, in terms of overall mentality and performance on the pitch. I will say one thing that's remained a constant for them. I was a strong advocate for Inter bringing him in at the start of last season, even though a lot of fans said this is a bad call, don't do it. Edin Dzeko is a very, very quality player. He's a world-class striker, and at his age, I reckon he's still got another 2 years left. When a player like that in his position is so accustomed to a league like Serie A, it's all up here. And being able to translate it down here, it's not as much work to him anymore. So what did you make of Roma's season, Richard?
I think that's a great example with Dzeko, because look at it's definitely a league for older strikers. Quagliarella is still doing well at his ripe old age of 75. You can certainly feel for Roma fans because it has been up and down, like you said. But I think the season ended very well for them. They got on a really hot streak. They beat Juventus at the end of the season. They have a new owner now as of today. So things are really turning up for them. But yeah, they got a good core, good young core too. Cliver, Chan, so many good youngsters. Yeah. And Zaniolo is going to be the one that's going to lead the Azzurri, hopefully, going in the future. So that with some grizzled vets like Dzeko and Kolarov, and the emergence of Vera too again. Roma should have a upward trajectory going forward, but the ups and downs, they really need to figure that out. And I think Fonseca, another year under his belt, he's going to be able to do that. We've seen his track record before. I think it'll continue again.
Absolutely. There's some rumors of ownership changing or some stake changing soon, and maybe even a return by Francesco Totti, which is inevitable in my opinion. And when he does come back to the club, there is going to be a fire lit under the Roma's ass. And I can't wait for that to happen, to be honest. I feel like Totti's just sitting on the sidelines, biding his time to get his hands around this club and say, this is my club and I'm here to take it. I can't wait. Big boys, Milan, straight back to our beautiful city. What a season for Milan. Now, I love to sit on the sidelines and I love to banter with my Milan cousins, because at the end of the day, there's no real hatred there. It's just like, ha, 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 who's worse off than you? Who's further away from Juventus this season? It started very bad for you guys at the start of the season. The whole Gianpaolo appointment, I wasn't a huge fan of it from the get-go, because even though tactically you can do some things, you're only as good with the tools that you have. And he just didn't have the personality. You need to come into Milan with personality. You need to show that you're there, take control, get the dressing room together. And I just don't think he ever did. I will say before we get started that sacking Gattuso was probably the wrong decision, but we'll move into that. I'll let Richard go into that a little bit more. So you'll be able to tell the people way better than I do. Sum up the very, very turbulent 2019-20 for Milan.
Yeah, it does seem like getting rid of Gattuso was probably a bad thing. I was one of the people who said to get rid of him because I didn't think he had that much of a ceiling. I'm obviously proven wrong with how he's doing with Napoli, but when he left, brought in Gianpaolo. I was on the pro Gianpaolo when he came in because I liked the offensive style he had. But it didn't work whatsoever. The players didn't buy into the system. He kept changing things. He had this great system going in preseason and completely changed it before the first game. Why would you do that if things are working so well? And then nothing went right after that. And then going forward, we weren't sure what was going to happen. People, all of a sudden, they said Pioli's going to come in. Many people, I was one of them who said, "What are you doing? Pioli's failed everywhere he's gone. He's a mid-table manager." But Frank, my co-host kept saying, Pioli will stabilize the ship. Trust it. And he did. And ever since then, he did stabilize the ship. The team started playing cohesive together. All of a sudden, big Zlatan comes in January and really turned the momentum up for the team. And then after the restart, they were probably one of the best teams in the league, mostly because of Zlatan, but youngsters like Theo Hernandez, Frank Kessié, Leao, Rebic emerged also coming in January after a slow start. So the sleeping giants are maybe waking up. It's a great move that, it ended so well, but there's also rumors about Ranić taking over as manager and director of football and everything, Maldini out. Finally, I kept screaming at the end, keep Pioli now. After I said, don't come in, I said, keep Pioli because things are going well. They told Ranić to go, kept Pioli, keeping Maldini now. And so 2020, 2021 is going to be very interesting for Milan, I think, going forward. A lot more stabilized than they were before. They should really aim for Champions League this year coming up.
It's definitely the right decision because it's a very unique transition into next season. You don't have that big gap and that big lengthy time to make some real fat, juicy changes, whether it's on the pitch or in the back room with the board. So I think it's in the best interest for every club to kind of keep what you have this season and transition slowly with some good proactive signings as well, which is another reason why, maybe Juventus should have really stuck with Sarri and just given him 2 or 3 more tools and see what he could have done. Because by default, as Richard said, next season, they'll still go into next season with Cristiano Ronaldo in their side and probably favourites to win the league. With Milan, again, as an Inter fan, I saw Pioli come into Inter and stabilise the ship as he did. And I think that he's a good choice going forward next season. And maybe they'll revisit the whole Ranić situation and bring him in off the pitch. But that'll be something next season. It just goes to show every team, every fan base likes to talk throughout the season like they've had drama and issues that have destabilized their season. But like this podcast is showing, it's every club that has their issue in one way or another. You can't be drama. You can't be drama-free, Richard, no matter who you support. And that being said, let's go on to Napoli, bro. Jesus Christ. Napoli. You start from Carlo to Gennaro. Wow.
I thought the hire to Carlo was great. I thought they needed that tournament champion that Carlo is. He's very good in the tournaments. He doesn't always win Scudettos, but he does very well in the tournaments. That's what he does. He's won with Real Madrid. He's won with Milan. He did very well at PSG and Bayern. So I thought that was good for them, but obviously a lot of drama in the backroom with the owner, with him, with Lorenzo Insigne, with the team going on boycott. I don't know what's going on over there. It was a shit show, pardon my language. But finally, De Laurentiis said, goodbye to Carlo, threatened the team with wage cuts if they didn't listen to what he said. Brought in Gattuso, and I thought, what are you doing? I mean, there's a reason I didn't like Gattuso because I didn't think I thought he had a ceiling. He came in, he was exactly what they needed personality-wise. No one's going to step up to Gattuso. He will headbutt them, like I mentioned earlier. No one's going to mess with Gattuso. So he has automatically the room's attention. And they listen. He did prove he had some tactics in him. He had much better players, I thought, at Napoli than he did with Milan. So they're able to institute what he wanted, especially defensively. You got one of the best defenders in the world, Koulibaly, a great midfield, a great three guys up top. It worked out well for him, and I can't say nothing but good things about Gattuso and Napoli this season because it was very rocky in the beginning, but they ended very well, and they had a chance against Barcelona, but unfortunately, you had to go to the new camp.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I can't say enough praise for Gattuso as well. He's just really shown everybody in Italy and the rest of the world how wrong they were about him in terms of being tactically inept. You give him a few extra good players, and he shows that he's definitely got the brains behind the operation, and I can definitely see him as a manager that will lift silverware in the country in his career. I almost don't have a single doubt about that. He already did with the Coppa Italia, and he'll claim that as his, and he'll go on to win even more silverware, in my opinion. So let's go on down the list. We've finally moved away from the big 6 or 7, the European places all locked up. And yeah, time to move to that nice little chunky curve of the table that loves to take points away from Inter and other teams above them. This season, Inter did a good job at disposing of some of those teams at least once where they didn't before. But the next teams that I'm going to go through are right in that bogey curve. So let's start with Sassuolo. Juve B, but not so much this season, man. The boys came to play and they took some points off their big daddies, Juventus, and they took some points off everybody while still playing good attacking football. And just always an entertaining side to watch, Sassuolo, Richard.
Yeah, what a team! What a fantastic team! They've always been a bogey team from Milan and Inter, really, and this season was a proof of that. They, once De Zerbi took over, he really implemented an offensive style that I think he never had the talent that he does right now. And the attacking power that Sassuolo has. Caputo, what a player he is. And you guys like Boga and Berardi and Traore and a bunch of other guys. I mean, it's a really fun team. And they were always fun bad. And we wondered if they ever got a manager that could figure out how to play defensively, they would start taking points from people. And they did at the end of the season. This is one of the probably second best or third best surprise of the season. And the restart, they were probably second or third best team coming out of the break. So kudos to them. Kudos to Sassuolo. They're keeping Boga for now. I hope they keep the pieces together because they're going to be fun to watch next year and be a headache for both you and I.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to another team that was another surprise package this season. They started off a tiny bit slow in the first month, but after that, Hellas Verona were at least a step or two ahead of the relegation quality level. They didn't look like for a second from about October onwards to November onwards that they were even going to flirt with the relegation zone. Top half team of the table all the way until the last end of the season. They've earned themselves 9th spot this season. So Hellas Verona, another big pain in the ass for Inter this season in their return fixture in the COVID period of time, and we needed a Barella super strike from out of this world to get them out of the way in the last 4 minutes this season. But Hellas Verona will feel very comfortable going into next season, and the only side to survive the drop out of last year's Serie B qualifications. Richard, Hellas Verona. More importantly, how do you reckon they'll back this up next season, man?
I think they're gonna be able to bring in some more players and really solidify and let everyone know it's not a one-off. I think with most teams, they come up when they get promoted, they play defensively and try not to allow any goals and stuff like that, and play really on the edge of failure. They were one of the best defenses in the league in terms of goals against. For a good portion of the season, they were tied with Juventus for least amount of goals before both started giving up goals. But they had some good players, standouts. Amrabat's one of the standout ones there. Kumbula, Ramani. And the whole team really stepped up and really shocked everybody. I'm still I can't believe it's hard to believe this team was a relegation team coming out from last year. They played so well as a unit, and I think as the manager who got them together playing the way they need to, he gets full credit for this. I mean, the players, they did well, but he got them to another level, and all hats off to Verona. Great job this season, and they nearly got Europe. I mean, think about that. A team that's promoted nearly got Europe. Wow.
Absolutely. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Let's move down the list. Fiorentina, right in the middle place. A turbulent season for them. They probably did expect to win a few more games. In my opinion, they were done with some pretty harsh refereeing decisions, at least more than 2 or 3 times. But they had some decent players in their squad to get them over the line. They did retire the number 13 to their legendary captain, Davide Astori, who we all love and absolutely adore, which is an amazing thing for them to start their season with. And with their new ownership, with not really new ownership, but being led by Comiso, they look like they're hungry again. Ribery was a good signing. Castrovilli, very exciting. But there are a few games this season where Castrovilli showed that he's still definitely lacking that last little step ahead. And it's not really fair to put him on the same level as I think, the Barella and the Tonali. I think they're both a little bit better than Castrovilli. Federico Chiesa, he's a good player, Richard. But they got to stop with these figures of around that 70 million mark. Now, I think if Milan is smart, go in and see what Fiorentina say. I don't think Missel's going to touch it, but talk to us about Fiorentina, man.
Yeah, they're a team that's been underwhelming for the last several seasons. They have always had that potential, they can never put it together. This is probably the best season they've had in a while, finishing 10th place. They're not flirting with relegation anymore, but bringing in a guy like Ribery, Castrovilli, like you mentioned, they really helped bring up the offense of this team. I mean, if Ribery didn't get hurt, Fiorentina probably would have been closer to the European spots. He had a fantastic beginning to the start. Him and Chiesa were hitting it off perfectly to begin with. Chiesa kind of dropped off as, he didn't have any help. But the team was good enough. Talent-wise, they're probably where they should have been. But I think, if it had some healthy seasons going forward, they can definitely push up. Comiso is a good owner, I think. He's going to help lead them the way. And I'm excited because, Fiorentina is not a team you should be talking about relegation with. It should be, fighting for Europe. We miss those days when they're in Europa League and Champions League. Those days are long gone, and having the icons like Batistuta there. We're all longing for Fiorentina to be relevant again, and hopefully this is a sign that it's getting towards that trajectory. Excuse me.
Yeah, they're definitely a side that's on the right track, but you have those doubts whether or not they will make the next crucial 2 or 3 right decisions. They're right in that middle ground of, make the right signings and keep the right players so that you can advance. No need to go 2 or 3 steps back and make it out as if you're a selling club or something like that. Really focus on your own development. A club that was really focusing well throughout the season was Parma, finishing around about where I expected them to finish, because at the end of the day, it is a little bit competitive once you crack the top end of the table. But once again, led by Gervinho, doesn't look like he's aging at all. I swear to God, I'd still take him at Inter, because on the counter-attack, he's one of the most absolutely lethal players. You can't catch him. You blink and he's at the other end of the field. It's an absolute joke. They did have a good season overall, Parma. They've got some good personalities in that team, with Bruno Alves as their captain. But I think it's all about Kulusevski, to be honest. He is as versatile as he gets. Sometimes I just think he's the kind of player that doesn't have a position in the formation. The coach just goes up to him and goes, where you see that you are needed, anywhere from that central part of the ground all the way to the far right-hand side and the far left, do whatever you need to do to get involved. I back you 100% of the way. He's going to be the sort of player that Juventus go next season. Phew, man, thank God we nailed that down, because we might be up shit creek if we didn't have him. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's going to be the signing that they wish Bernardeschi would have been, right?
Hang on.
What a fantastic season by Parma. I mean, obviously, Bruno Alves leading the way. He had a great season defensively. Kuchka was really good for them, but the front three really led the way. They were fun bad. They gave up goals, but they scored lots of goals too. Gervinho and Kulusevski going down the wings, and then Cornelius up top getting the goals. Inglese came out at the end. They're such a fun team to watch, and like you said, really all you got to do is hit the ball deep to Kulusevski or Gervinho. They're going to outpace everybody else. Kulusevski's got the moves, can shoot with both feet. We saw that all season long. Right-footed bombs, left-footed bombs, and then really a rounded around striker in Cornelius getting, putting the goals away. They're a fun team to watch. They definitely improved where I thought. I was afraid they would maybe get in a relegation fight, but this year they flirted with European football for a long time. It wasn't for the end when they kind of lost their steam, but great job by this team overall, and I'm excited what they can do. Hopefully, if they do lose some players, they can reinvest it into better signings and develop those players. Not having Kulusevski next year is going to suck, but I'm confident that they can find a replacement, maybe not as good as him, but someone who can fit the bill to keep the goal scoring up, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving down the table once again, Bologna, who I think actually performed quite well this season, given everything. With Sinisa Mihajlovic battling leukemia and getting treatment for that, he's an absolute warrior, man, and we love Mihajlovic, and I think it's just great to see him still doing what he loves. You can tell that this sport, this game, and this pitch is his oxygen. It is his treatment. And I've read so many stories this season of him just not taking advice from his immediate family and best friends in the whole world. Doctors, oh man, the whole schmozzle. Overall, half decent season. I think Orsolini is a great player. I think he's ready to make a jump to a bigger team in Italy. Maybe not towards that top 3 or 4 curve, but he is a player that, he does play well for Bologna. I love seeing Rodrigo Palacio play all the time, as he was that light in a very dark period of time for Inter. He still scored 5 goals in Serie A and 2 in the Coppa Italia this season. So there's no reason why he's still not an asset. And some other decent players for them this season. Obviously, you have Sansone and Soriano and Santander, but they were a little bit overwhelming, especially Santander, who only grabbed the solo goal all season. What'd you make of Bologna, mate?
Yeah, they ended the season very well. They start out. This team has a lot of talent, a lot of young talent, but they have talent nonetheless. And I thought that with the right coaching, they could really overachieve and make it difficult for many teams. And I think when they did that all season long, I kept saying if they had a striker, Palacio's great. He's a great poacher, but he's 38, 39 years old. He's not going to do it for you. You need a young guy. And I thought Moussa Barr would have been a great fit, and he fit in pretty seamlessly with them. He started getting goals with them a lot. Orsolini is fantastic, and all the players you're talking about. This was a fun team to watch, and they definitely finished on the upward trajectory. Obviously playing for Sinisa, and hopefully next year he's doing better. The team feeds off of him, and they continue to improve because I like the way they're going. They're building a good team around him from front to back. So let's see what Bologna can do, but signs are looking good for them.
Absolutely. We're up to Udinese now. Just before we move into a few other sides, I'm really excited to talk about Cagliari after this. But Udinese, one of those teams that, on their day can be a pain in the ass, but don't look like they have an identity when they play. A lot of the time this season, it was more like, what can Rodrigo De Paul do to bail us out of a lot of situations? Another player like Kulusevski, in a sense, where I feel like he's got a very free roaming role. He can play very well on the left, but this season saw him make a very, very raw transition into central midfield. I think he plays very well. He deserves a better side, in my opinion. A player that I think Milan would be wise to go in for, but I don't read many of the Milan, like the under-the-counter rumors, so I'm not too sure where Rodrigo De Paul is going to be next season, linked with Inter for the last year, but I think that our squad is pretty much filled to the point where he would just be wasting his time. Other than that, Kevin Lasagna, always a threat, but what did you make of Udinese overall this season, mate?
Again, this is another team like Fiorentina. They're very underwhelming with the talent that they have at their disposal. They've had one of the youngest talented teams for a while. Usually Kevin Lasagna is Mr. Faithful. You can always rely on him. But this year, I thought he didn't do very well. He came on at the very end. Last match, he had some great goals, but he didn't do that much. Okaka was okay. Fofana was okay. De Paul was okay. He was really their best player, De Paul, but yeah, it's very underwhelming for them. And once they got the new manager, I think the ship started riding. They've always been flirting with relegation, and that's left me uncomfortable. Udinese should not be in Serie B. They should be in Serie A. They're one of those clubs that you just know. Yeah, and so I'm glad to see they fixed it at the end. But hopefully next year those guys can step up and do better, because it's really underwhelming season for me and very disappointing to see where they finished overall. I mean, they finished in 13th, which is okay, but they were so close to relegation all season long.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest surprise packages early in the first half of the season was Cagliari. They spent 4 match days in the Champions League zone. They went from late September to early December undefeated, and then didn't win a game for almost the exact same amount of time before COVID, and then they barely won again. This team actually went a good 6 months without grabbing a dub. Do you know that, Richard? I only checked it this morning. It's nuts, bro.
It's crazy. The team has some good players with them. I was one of the people who were so in on Cagliari. I said, this is their year. They're going to make European spot. They have the talent now. And for whatever reason, after they go on a big win streak, they just completely disappeared off the face of the earth. Maran lost his job. They had to get a new manager in, bring in Zenga, and he did okay. They got a new manager next year, EDF, which should make things interesting for Cagliari. It's always difficult to play there, but let's see what happens. It's a head scratcher with Cagliari. I don't know what to make of their season.
I think they'll be better next season. I think with EDF coming in, that's exactly the kind of coach you need. And they're actually in a decent position at the moment. 14th is not glamorous, but it's not 1 point above relegation. It's not like they were looking back going, oh man, that was lucky. I think they can progress from here. Whether or not Nainggolan stays, I don't think he will because they can't afford the wages. I would gladly have him back at Inter as a rotational option. Whether or not he wants that, I don't know. But he just showed once again this season, a lot of Inter fans were saying, oh, we should have kept him, but he's a talent player. He doesn't want to work hard anymore. He's more than happy to play well for 30 minutes, score a screamer, and then go, yep, I'm Raja. I'll beat it for a while. That's it, man. That's it. And that's where he's at in his career. And Cagliari know that. Everybody knows that. But it was a little disappointing to see them drop. They had that fantastic start to the season. But as Richard said, next year with EDF coming in, I think they can build on that identity a little bit more. I don't think they'll be flirting with the bottom next season. I think they'll be able to count their blushes for another year, definitely. Sampdoria next. Oh man, they really had to crawl. They were in the relegation zone for the first 10 match days, and Tinkerman Ranieri almost saves their blushes. Towards the end, I guess you could say that. They weren't safe all year. Quagliarella, there's only so many amount of times that a 75-year-old, as Richard said, can bail them out. Towards the other end of the age spectrum, it was actually an Inter youth product, Federico Bonazzoli, who stepped it up towards the end of the season. And I started getting flashbacks of when I was at home playing like FIFA 13 or 14 or something. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll bring on that 16-year-old who doesn't even have a face on the FIFA game. What did you think of Sampdoria, Richard, man?
A very poor season. You should never see those Genovese clubs towards the bottom of the table, and we did. Quagliarella, after having a fantastic year last year, struggled mightily. The whole team struggled. The Tinkerman did come in and help them a little bit, but it's still, they need a lot of work. They got the pieces there. They just got to get good discipline and try to figure things out. But man, they need to make some major improvements, both on the coaching end and then really in the whole depth department. They're going to be a mid-table team, but very poor season for me, for Sampdoria. Too poor.
Yeah, going off the back of too poor, even worse than that is Torino's season for me. This is a team that should not be anywhere near the bottom. This is a team where I purposely try to sleep in and miss the game when Inter play them because we have just been devastating against them all the time. This season, my favorite fixture, as I've said on the Inter Worldwide channel, was us beating them 3-0 in Turin. It just went to show how bad they were this season because so many fixtures where Torino create problems for teams, they did not step it up this season. And this was the first season that I think I genuinely felt sorry for Belotti. He is a player with zero service. He is a player that if you chucked him into almost any team in the top half of the season, he'd be flirting with 20 goals and people would be talking about him as the best striker in the country. There were whispers about him being, on that level about 2 or 3 seasons ago. But for me, Torino just might be the most disappointing team of the season. And I'm going to give them that vote. What about you, Richard? Oh, by the way, Mazzarri was out by November, was it?
Yeah. And it's typical Mazzarri. First season's great. Second season, not so much. You feel bad for Belotti, like you said, because he's probably one of the most well-rounded strikers in the league. But Torino, the way they played, they deserve to be relegated. They have, talent-wise, their defense is probably one of the best in the league, but they just couldn't do it this year. Last year, they were pretty good. And overall, poor from the whole team. Very disappointing with Torino. They should be, fighting for Europe, not relegation.
For sure. Genoa were another disappointing package this season. As Richard said, the Genovese teams shouldn't really be that far down, but, I said this season, they are the easiest opponent Inter has had in the last 4 or 5 years. We've whacked something like 16 goals past them in the last 4 or 5 games we've played them. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. They make Roberto Gagliardini look like prime time Tony Cruz. They were horrible. They were horrible all year. Genoa were horrible all year. There was not a single player in their team that really stepped up and showed the fact that they could carry this side. And I'm very worried about them going into next season. If I was a Genoa fan, considering their financial state as well, they're going to be swimming out of the deep end next season, mate.
Yeah, Genoa is they got a lot of things to figure out. manager. They got Mattia Perin, but that's about it, right? Crescito is getting older. They got some pieces there, but this team is not doing well at all, and they're going to be in the relegation fight again next year. Maybe they need to go to Serie B to kind of figure things out. It's going to be hard to come back, but you hate to see it because it's a historic club, and to see them doing so poorly it hurts. It hurts. It's like a punch in the stomach, right?
It's honestly not fun anymore bullying them as an Inter fan. The last time it was fun was when we whacked 5 past them last season with Nainggolan, and after that I was just like, stop, they're already dead. It's not fun anymore. Let's move into the 3 unfortunate sides that were relegated. Lecce, the most unfortunate of the lot, started the season well, backed themselves to be that nitty-gritty, tough team that goes into the dressing room every game and says, yeah, we'll be underdogs, but we'll get something out of today. Sort of like the, what's that team in England that finished like 7th this year? They were really good. Sheffield United or something? Yeah, those were the comparisons I was making. I'm like, Lecce is the Sheffield United. They're just big brick, back themselves defensively, and big teams struggle to break them down as well. We saw that with Juventus and Inter struggling to break them down all season, but there's only just so much without that attacking talent that you need to have in Italy to at least get a few goals on the board to get as many points as possible to stay up. Lecce, bad season for them, Richard, considering they got relegated. Do you think they can come back from this and maybe make an appearance again in the next couple of years in Serie A?
I hope so, man. They're beautiful kids, amazing home crowd. It was really fun to watch them. They played attractive football. Most of the times, these teams who are about to be relegated, they play defensively, unattractive football. They played their style and they stuck with it, and they nearly got out of it. They reminded me a lot of Crotone from a few years back. I was pulling for them. I got a chance to interview the UK Lecce fan club. Great guys.
I saw that.
there.
Great.
Yeah, and they were talking about all the players they had, and Mancosu was big this year. Falco was big this year.
I think he got like 14. I think he got like 14 or 15 goals or something this season, man. From midfield, he was great.
They did great, but unfortunately, they need more help defensively. That's where they really struggled, and I think that's where it separated them from surviving is not having defense. Defense and goalkeeper was really the struggle for them, mostly defense.
Lapadula turning 31 next season, he'll probably see that as a good way to become the focal point of that club in Serie B if he doesn't seek out a move to a Serie A side. I think it's important for them to hold on to him. He's a key figure to keep that club in the tooth and nail fight for promotion again.
They were so much better when he played as opposed to Babacar. I had a lot of hopes for Babacar. You're going to see him stay in Serie A, and I think Lapadula hopefully will stay with them, and with him and Falco and Mancosu, if they stay, they could really come back up the year after and challenge for Serie A again. Yeah.
Moving on to Brescia, who I thought at the start of the season, they were my pick to stay up, but I think everyone was just more in love with the notion of Brescia without actually looking into the club, which we all know struggles financially as a part of their DNA. It's almost etched in their history that we want to struggle. We want to live with our misery, and that's what they did all season, man. I don't think their president handled the Tonali situation well. And because of this situation, he's looking at a drop of almost maybe 40% in that transfer fee. He really should have sat back in October, November and flirted with those 50 million figures because they're relegated. Inter's waiting to put something stupid up, like 30 plus 5 in bonuses. It's ridiculous. I think it's now to the point where it was a good result, them going down for teams like Milan and Juventus as well, because they're probably going, you know what, we might be able to finance that Tonali move as well. Whoever gets Tonali wins, in my opinion. And was there anything good about Brescia's season? I don't even want to go into Balotelli because I spend enough time going in on him on the channel and online. He's just one big ball of disappointment, man.
He encapsulates Brescia this season, Balotelli. But beside that, the best news from them, other than Tonali, Torregrosso. He was really the one that was good for them. He would score goals. I think he'll remain in Serie A next year. I mean, a mid-table team or even one of the upper European teams will probably want a player like him. He knows how to find the back of the net. Donnarumma was underwhelming as well. I had high hopes for him. But Torregrosso, for me, was one of the only players for them that really stood out. And also Jorinen. I think Jorinen's going to stay in Serie A. A good goalkeeper. He faced a million shots a game. And he's when he wasn't there, they gave up 7 goals. So,
yeah, it did. Last and definitely least, a side that was in the relegation zone for 33 of the 38 match days. They didn't come off second last spot. since the midway point of the season and was honestly occupying last for the last 8 match days altogether. SPAL threw in the towel super early. They were the first team to just go up pretty much as COVID hit. Bugger this, man. We're done. We're completely done. Petagna is the only player that sort of offers a little bit of a quality sort of leap, in my opinion. But even then, he looked so sick and tired by the end of the season. And I actually think he dropped his fitness levels and nutrition levels a little bit as well. Richard, SPAL, maybe they're looking at a drop a little bit longer than the rest.
Yeah, I think of the three teams, they're probably the last one to come up. They've been flirting with relegation for several seasons now. Last year they needed a miracle to stave off of it. Petagna, isn't he going to Napoli, I think, now too? So I mean,
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he has a lot. SPAL has a lot to do now going forward, and like you said, they gave up a while ago, and I don't know, man. It's gonna be a while before we see SPAL again. It's a great story, great kits, but unfortunately, that they don't have enough. They need to figure out a way to reinvigorate their whole club and get back on the right track, because they got a long way to go, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. That's it for the 20 sides. Before I let Richard go, and thanks for joining me again, man. It's been awesome. Let's run through a couple of metrics and a couple of questions. So let's go with the team of the season, the best side of the season. Overall, just considering everything that's happened, my vote goes to Atalanta.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. Fantastic team to watch.
Awesome. Worst team overall in the season, my vote would go to SPAL.
I'm going to go Torino because I had high hopes.
Yeah, well, see, the next question was most disappointing team of the season, and that definitely would have gone to Torino for me, definitely.
Yeah. I'll say
awesome.
they come for that.
Of course. Best manager this season, I've written down Gasperini.
I agree 100%. Gasperini all the way.
Yeah, Inzaghi was around about that time before COVID, but once again, couldn't make it work with the tools that he had. Worst coach this season, I'm going to let you answer this one first.
Marco Giampaolo.
I knew you would say that, man. I knew you'd say that. And to be honest, I'd have to agree as well. And any coach that spends that little amount of time at a big club like Milan, you might as well just rub the name out of the history books, man, and pretend that it was just a bad dream, to be honest. Best player of the season.
Best player of the season. Oh, man. I'm going to go with Papu Gomez.
Papu Gomez is a really, really good choice. For me, really makes me sad talking about this, considering what he's gone through. But I'm such a big Josip Ilicic fan, man. I think he is a brilliant player. He's so good, and he looks like he's got more to offer. Let's hope it all works out well for him personally, so that he can attack that Champions League with full blown. That's pretty much it from us for this. Did you have a disappointing player of the season? Most disappointing player?
Probably Kevin Lasagna. I had a lot of high hopes. I thought he would be the one constant for Udinese, and he struggled mightily.
I know it's not fair that he was injured, but for me, it was Frank Ribery. I think I wanted to see him perform more and do more overall. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the Serie A this season. Richard, it was brilliant. And you know what? We'll tee up a little bit before the next season starts to go through more of a preview and talk then. I wouldn't mind getting some early predictions now, but it's not safe and not productive at all to do it now. So... Nah, not good. That's it from me. And thank you once again, Richard, for coming on to Interworldwide. And you'll see more of us together soon.
Absolutely. Can't wait. Thank you for having me on. We'll get you on my show. And we'll be collaborating a lot more coming up soon.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, guys. Ciao, ragazzi.